What's up, guys? This is a plastic sword. I have been on vacation for about a week and a half, and from my regular job, of course. I've done a few things. Um, did manage to get to the beach, but I only went for one day or one night. Had a little bit of fun. Done a couple of things around the house, a couple of things around playing with the business idea. And the business idea, now that's a tricky one. I spent a little bit of time thinking about my job and where I'm at with that. And I tend to get pretty deep into philosophy, so I'm usually reframing things or thinking about it through a different lens so that I can make it make some sense to me. And I think for this one, what I've came to is just spending a lot of time thinking about just humans. And I think in a lot of times humans forget that we're humans, that we're an animal, we are a life form on this planet. It's easy to get bummed out about your job and modern society and the way that all these jobs are structured, corporate. And for small businesses, it can be more fun, but it's also exponentially more difficult because you have more risks than a bigger corporation, I would argue, because bigger corporation has the money and the revenue to afford things like legal, they have their tanks, If we think back to the old days, 10,000 something years ago, we come to understand that there's a couple of things that has to happen. And a lot of animals currently, by the way. In order to survive, you have to be able to go out and hunt. You have to be willing to go out and hunt. And you have to be willing to take an animal's life so that you can live. It's an exchange of energy. In our modern life, many of us don't really have to do that. And we have to get a job and work for money. And so it's similar in the fact that it is an exchange of energy. And so while I've been off, I've been thinking about this. There are some people who have been fortunate enough to obtain assets where, like real estate, where you can cash flow, and for some of them that even hire property managers to do a lot of the work and contractors to do the work, so they're nearly receiving a passive income. I've looked into it, I've took courses on it, but it's above my risk tolerance because I don't see committing to owning an asset for not even owning, the bank will own it for like 15 to 30 years. And playing the debt game is just not something I'm very comfortable with. You could get dividends from stocks if you own enough stocks to be able to live off of the dividends. I don't think that's the safest plan, but for people who can afford to be diversified, it seems like a pretty good gig. And for the rest of us, we have to work. and exchange service and time to receive money to survive on. So we have to still get out and hunt. We don't have anybody hunting for us. And the way that things are structured right now with, again, with a lot of big corporations, I finally watched the movie Ford versus Ferrari the other day. And about 40 minutes in, there's a diner scene where they talk quite a bit about not quite a bit. It's only about a minute long, but it talks about the way that these corporations are set up. They are machines, and even if they want to care about you, they can't, because you have a boss that has to report to his boss, that has to report to his boss, that has to report to his boss. And so many of us become numbers on a spreadsheet, or your KPIs, key performance indicators. And I listen to a lot of Alex Hormozy, for example. He's on top of the game right now, and a lot of what he says seems very valuable. And I honestly believe that at his core, he means well, but he's telling all these companies that they need to be making hundreds more calls per day to get sales, and it just happens to coincide with me receiving a lot more spam calls every day. Potential spam, I joke, is my best friend now. They call me more than anybody else. I'm not saying it's his fault, but I'm saying that it's just spreading this. He's got this formula, and it works great for businesses. And it should point out the flaws to you within your business, where you're talking about LTV to CAC ratios, your lifetime value from a customer to your cost of acquiring the customer. And it might be good for business for a while, but everything is degrading everything down to just making sales, and how you can sell to people who convince people to spend their money for your product, even when they may not have the money to buy your product, whether they're interested or not. And it goes back, it gets me thinking about the hunting thing, 10,000 years ago. You have to be willing to take that animal's life. And unfortunately, that's the way a lot of people view sales. You have to be willing to take somebody's money in order for you to survive. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing or an evil thing. It's just an exchange of energy, because if you're not exchanging your energy, then you are not going to survive. And we've built these veneers or these different lenses to view life, this society, this civilization that we have structured. And we wear our nice clothes, and we like to pretend that we're not animals, that we forget that we really are, and that humans have only been here for a short time on this planet. I think another thing, as far as the business thing goes, I just watched a short just a few minutes ago on a channel called Amuleto, and it was called Full Time. And this kid who just got out of college, apparently skateboarding with his friends, and somebody offers him some money to just stand in a square all day and it's pretty much a good representation about what a lot of jobs are like these days. Except now we're facing something different, which is the AI craze. Now, I don't know. AI seems fundamentally different than internet. And my hope is that we can look back on AI 10, 20 years from now the same way that we have done with the internet, and that it wasn't necessarily a beast to be conquered. It was a nascent technology. My hope with AI is that it'll balance out, and I may make a whole different video about that as to why I think AI will hit a ceiling, but it's more or less, if you put everybody out of work to replace them with AI, then nobody's got money to buy your product, so you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. But AI is not going anywhere, and that's pretty clear. Now, a lot of the people who are on the AI train will say that everybody's going to be managers of AI agents. So you'll have swarms of agents. You'll have agents that perform different tasks, and you'll have a whole group of those being managed by another AI agent manager. And so I'm not sure what the person is that's managing the AI agents is doing. But it's also, even if you needed a few people to manage those AI agents, which if you've got AI managers, what do you need the people for? But even if you did need a few people involved in the mix, then, was there like 300 million people just in America? Do you need that many AI agent managers? I'm glad they're optimistic. And I hope that robotics don't take over all of the blue collar jobs too soon, because then we'll have nothing to do. But it's trending that way all the time. It's like your touchscreen menus when you go to some of the fast food restaurants where you can order without having to talk to anybody necessarily. As more and more robotics come online and AI continues to permeate society, then there's less things to do and less things to build. And it was already difficult to think of building a small business that was not going to be competing with some of the big powerhouses and quickly be overtaken by them, such as Facebook or Google or Amazon is a big one. And I think the path is pretty unclear right now for a lot of people, but we still have to get out and hunt, guys. I go back to work tonight, and it's been a nice week off. Of course, I wish it could have been a little bit longer. I missed that 2.5 months off that I used to get as a kid for summer vacation. But trying to think through a different lens, it's getting out and hunting, an energy exchange, and people say you're exchanging your time for money. Yeah, I'm also getting out and hunting for a meal. I do spend quite a bit of time trying to remind myself that we have modern luxuries that kings and queens didn't enjoy back in the day. Indoor plumbing, electricity. These are recent technologies for the most part. They've become pretty normalized. They seem like basic necessities now. But it's still very nice to have. It's middle of the summer right now. We're having 90-something degree days, and I can turn air conditioners on to stay cool in my house, and that's not promised to always be around either. We've been going up and up and up and up, but that could all change. That could all change if society just continues to fall apart, and the macro conditions kind of concern me. And I'm not going to blame that on politics because I don't really see that much of a difference between one party to the other. I think they're all playing the same kind of game. They may have slightly different goals, but from my perspective, you still get screwed either way, so what's the difference? And people will argue with that one, but facts are facts. So I just don't see where anybody in politics really. I think you have to be a little bit psychotic to even go into politics, and then we shouldn't be surprised when we get what we get. I think it was George Carlin that I heard say one time, like, these are people that we are voting into place that come from the public, and maybe the public has messed up. Nevertheless, this video really didn't have a goal other than to say that I have had a few days off and I enjoyed it. It wasn't long enough. And I'm still working on my business, which is not about the job that I'm going to. The job is a fundraiser for everything else that I'm working on in my life currently. And it's not going to be YouTube, guys. This YouTube to me is a marketing or an advertising vehicle, which is why I haven't taken it too serious yet. I will if it's still around in the next year or two. If AI hasn't completely saturated and destroyed our video platforms, then it has dangers of doing that, but I don't know. I'm not too worried about that one. I feel like some people will quickly get tired of AI content and want to see real people, and so I am a real people as of this moment. Now, does it mean I'm not going to use AI on my channel? No, I most likely will. I am writing a story right now, and in order to animate that story to put it on YouTube, then I probably will have to use some AI because I can't afford to hire professional animators. If you've ever looked around on Fiverr, they are some of the most expensive, and it's because it's a lot of work. It takes time. If you're playing around with like Daz 3D or Blender, it's a very complicated process to animate even short animations. And even if you have the skill to be able to animate, to be able to render it out as a product can also be very expensive. In some cases, it might cost $40,000 to render out 2 minutes of animation for high quality. So yeah, if I want to animate my story, then I'll probably have to use some AI, and I'm already planning on it. I just haven't gotten that far with the story yet. YouTube will definitely be a part of it for the moment. I don't know. I might use some of X. I might use some of these other platforms as well. But for me, at this moment, with YouTube being owned by Google, it's the best platform, bar none. I can't see using something else. And it's not that I'm getting thousands of subs or a lot of attention, but there's a plan. And some of it's going to involve paid ads, honestly. But for the moment, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm working towards it. And it's just there's no such thing as an overnight success. I mean, I'm trying to write a book. I'm actually simultaneously writing two books, a fiction book and a nonfiction book. I'm also working with several different programs to try to learn how to use different things. And I'm trying out different editing software. I've been using Final Cut. I figured I would try DaVinci Resolve so I could get some of the effects off of it, like their parallax effect. And I'm not crazy about DaVinci Resolve. It's a lot different than Final Cut. So I'm not just when you look at some of these things, like right now OBS Studio, I haven't even been using that too long. This right here, this video is a test also. I may be one of the only people that sees this video when I go back and look at it and I say, hey, I don't like this about my background, or I don't like this about this, or whatever. I don't know. I need to work on my sound quality. These are things that I already know, but you can't really examine it and improve and get 1% better. Shouts out to Atomic Habits, I guess. You can't improve unless you do it and then go back and examine it and criticize it yourself. I'm sure there's plenty of people who could run across this video that would gladly, freely criticize my video, and the problem is I really just don't care what they have to say. And it's hard sometimes. I think that some people mean well in the comments, but we've been so conditioned to see everything negatively, and I've seen it on other YouTube channels where, depending on how you read the comment, the creator may take it as an attack or a negative comment. But I've read it and I'll look at it and I'll say, I think this person meant it in a good, warm, heartfelt way. It was meant to be good criticism. But then I could also see where it could be taken in a negative way. And I think that's just where society has us right now. We're having a difficult time in accepting somebody's criticism as constructive or positive, especially when the same exact words can be interpreted as being negative. That's kind of where I'm at with this video, and I think I'm going to leave it at that for now, because I don't know if I'm going to rewatch it for this long. It's just, like I said, it was a test video. It's the end of my vacation. I'm getting back into the hunt tonight, which for me involves driving a truck at the moment. And we'll go from there. Anybody actually watched this whole video? Appreciate you. Leave a comment. Like the video. Or don't. It's up to you. But nevertheless, I appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a great day. Later on.